안녕하십니까 여러분. 저는 라파엘입니다. So today we'll be showing to you how we can actually tap into insights within Mixpanel to actually grow, build, and convert your customers better. So Mixpanel is the leader in the product analytics since 2009, and we have a good number of brands with us. And some of the key brands you'd like to note could be Uber, Twitter, Samsung, PayPal, and so on and so forth. So we have a huge number of events being tracked daily, and we have 26,000 customers worldwide. So the reason for product analytics too is that most companies are actually sitting on a gold mine of all the product and user data, but they just don't have the right analytics tool in the market to make full use of it. And growth teams struggle to understand and prioritize different customers and measure their key impact. So when we actually do a survey, a lot of customers want to understand conversion, the impact of campaigns, retention, and engagement, but they do not know why users drop off, where they drop off, or even have a visual representation on your users in the customer journey. So we do know that marketing tools like Google Analytics are very helpful, but they only provide a very small part and view about the users. So marketing analytics really focus a lot on the traffic and acquisition, such as understanding where your users are coming from, what websites they are, and potentially just how many purchases. But it doesn't really tell you the how, where, and why. So with Mixpanel, we are a product and user analytics. This really gives you a much deeper depth of understanding. For example, why and where did my users drop off in the checkout process? When my users first come to a website, did the voucher actually convert them? Or is my product recommendation helping to convert users back? So some of the companies actually use BI tools to get answers like this. But the challenge is that with BI tools, this is very complex and it requires a lot of technical knowledge to run reports, build them, and when it comes to having requests and getting this report, it always takes times and days, and it gets really frustrated. And that's where there is a huge queue, and it makes it very hard for marketing teams to get answers they want and take action in real time. So Mixpanel's self-serve ability really allows you to go into the depth and flexibility to create, run reports to really understand your users in terms of their profile and all the activities they are doing on your website. So do take note, Mixpanel is very useful for the product teams, design teams, growth and marketing, and even business analysts. So how are we going to work with Bigin? So the very first thing you can do is actually a good ecosystem and cycle. Mixpanel helps you to analyze your users' behavior across different platforms, such as your website, your mobile phone, and maybe external sources. With that, we are able to create different user segments, set it over to Bigin, such that Bigin is able to engage your users in an omni or cross-channel way. And after you send your campaigns with Bigin, you're able to import all the campaign events back to Mixpanel for you to run a holistic analysis. So now, let us begin to first understand the importance of the customer lifecycle. And this is a very, very important thing in growth marketing. So we do know that in the customer lifecycle, we have leads, first-time buyers, active passive buyers, and defecting customers. And as you see in the chart, the goal is to convert your leads to become first-time customers, get your first-time customers to become repeat buyers, and at the same time, win back your defecting customers back to active customers. So this will be a very strong concept to start with. But the problem is this, a lot of growth teams do not have the ability to have a very visual view to first understand who and where their customers are in the life cycle. And that's where we'll head to Mixpanel to find out more. The first thing I would like to touch with you is being able, as a growth marketer, to understand your customer lifecycle. So we can see here, we have leads, first-time customers, active customers, and churn customers. This gives you a very good eye view on the customer trends if your leads are growing over time, decreasing over time, and so on and so forth. So there's something I would really like and want to cover, and this is one of the growth hacks I always tell my clients. So we do know that in the marketing world, the struggle of marketers is to find out or understand how long should they wait to really engage their customers with the very first email when they come on board to your website or platform. Mixpanel is able to provide you with information like this. For example, this tells us that on average, most of my customers make their very first purchase after 12 days. So what does it mean to a marketer for insights like this? So with this kind of information, when you're creating your marketing or automation campaigns for users, you can say, for all users that registers the first time, let's wait around 12 days before we send them the very first email to engage them. And what we are trying to do is to actually reach out to the customers at the optimum time possible for conversion. Now, moving on, we also have the same struggle to understand when will the customers repeat the second purchase. And information like this also helps you to give us insights to build better campaigns at Bigin. Active customers is really good about understanding their average order value, and having this metric here helps us to understand if your active customers are buying more or less over a period of time. Last but not least, this is something which is very interesting and very powerful that I would like to touch on. We do know that in the e-commerce industry, churn customers has always been a challenge in growth marketing. And this is actually a gold mine of money which you can tap on. What if I tell you, Mixpanel is able to give you information of the amount of purchases your customer will roughly make before they actually defect or churn? So why this is so important? We do know that with regular frequent purchase, we always have something called the purchase fatigue. So with information like this, we are able to create a segment of these users, send it to Bigin, and start engaging them before these customers really start to defect. So what we are trying to do here is to change your marketing from something that is reactive to something that is really proactive. Now, with that being said, we do know that churn customers are usually defined as users who have not made any purchase in like 2 months or 3 months, which is a very long period of time. However, what if I tell you also, out of all your churn customers, we actually have roughly 10% of your users or churn users that is still showcasing interest or activity. So this means, and imagine, users who have not purchased for a very long time, they are actually starting to view your website, add items to cart, opening your emails and push notifications, but they are just not making the final checkout. So what you can easily do is to create this user group and start engaging them with free shipping or vouchers, because all these customers need is just a quick push for you to do a very easy win-back campaign to convert your churn customers back to active buyers. So this is what the customer lifecycle dashboard is, and this will really give you a very good view to kickstart and elevate your marketing. Let me run through a few more metrics on what you can derive from Mixpanel before I show you how we are able to create different reports and drill down into further details. So tracking your revenue month on month and different periods is very key in the marketing world, because we want to know if our campaigns are driving revenue. This is simple in Mixpanel. Apart from that, tracking the registration process and where they're dropping off is also easy in Mixpanel. Next, let me bring you to a very interesting use case. We do know now that in e-commerce world, we always have the website and the mobile phone. But what's really sad or unfortunate is sometimes marketing teams treat customers as the pure mobile customers or pure website. But let's take a look into this insight further. Imagine when we are analyzing the users' usage by platform, we can see that most of my users are using the mobile phone and not so much on the web. Why? Because when they're traveling in the trains, they are actually using the mobile phone to shop, add to cart. But what's really interesting, when I analyze the activity further, most of the final purchase and checkouts are done on the web and not so much on the mobile. So how can I take this information as a marketer? So this means when we are launching a better cart campaigns, it might be more effective to engage users via a web push or potentially an email campaign instead of a mobile push. So this is how we are able to tap into insights like this. Few more things I'd like to cover. Tracking your top products, your top product categories is possible in Mixpanel. So you know which product sells well, which product sells bad. And for products who don't sell so well, you can actually know which they are and try to market them up to clear the stocks. Next, this is something very interesting that I've actually realized. I believe that all of you as customers sometimes shop at a e-commerce platform and you might not actually find the products that you want to buy. However, within Mixpanel, you are able to understand the different kind of products that your users are searching but do not exist in your product catalog. So why this is very important? By knowing the kind of things your customers are searching for that you do not provide, as a marketing team or a product manager, you can actually bring in these products into your platform to cover these product gaps. And this could also be one of the potential reasons why your customers might actually churn, because you don't have products that you want to find. So these are the metrics you can track within Mixpanel. So the next thing I would like to go through with you is how we are able to run these reports and drill into further details. So for now, let's start off with Mixpanel flows. So flows in Mixpanel is a very good way to understand your user's digital journey. And what I mean by that, there are a lot of times we assume a user might go from step 1, step 2, step 3, or step 4. So this gives me a very good idea to understand where my users are potentially moving across my cross-device. So, for example, for a session start, sometimes you might think a user might go to the website and click on any product they want to buy and they view the item. But what we can see here is that it seems that most of my users that come to my platform actually search for a product that they already want to find. After which, because of your recommendation engine, they are actually clicking on products that have a very similar offering before they actually view the item, add to cart, and finally make the purchase. So with this can actually help you plan better onboarding within your platform itself, or even plan better email onboarding campaigns, such as you can say in the message like, hey, Mr. Customer, thank you for signing up. In order to start your journey, this is where you can search for your products. And do take note that we also have a wide offerings through our recommendation engine. So these are some ways where we can actually better personalize and engage your users better. Of course, this is actually much more powerful when we can also set up goal events. Because there are times I want to understand what my users do before they actually make the payment. So with this, we can see that we can reverse engineer, set up a goal event to understand what my users do before they actually check out. So Mixpanel flows is a very, very powerful and strong way to really understand the most natural path your users would actually take. And this will help you both as a product and growth team to understand why my users are not going to certain pages that I might think they will go. Moving on, let's head on to funnels. And I believe in every marketing, we always want to understand where and why my customers are dropping off. So for this case, let us use a purchasing funnel or cycle. So right here, we can set a series of steps, and we have customers who register for the first time, view items, add to cart, fill in the shipping details before they make the payment. Right here, you can set your conversion window for this funnel within Mixpanel very easily. It could be within a session, if that's your point of analysis, it could be days, it could be weeks. The first thing Mixpanel would like to tell you is the overall conversion rate of this funnel. And as you can see in this graph, we are able to pinpoint where are the key areas your customers are dropping off. And if you further drill down to this, we give you the time taken on average for each step for your customer to go from step 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. So, as we mentioned earlier, we do know that customers or e-commerce players always have the abundant cart campaign. And most of the time, the abandoned cart is a very generic message with just the product recommendations. But being able to find out where they are dropping off, for example, is it the payment page or is it the shipping page, will help us better to target customers differently. So for example, if you realize most of my users are dropping off at the shipping page, sometimes you might think that, oh, the shipping could be too expensive for my users. And that's where in the email that you send to them, you can say, hey, you realize you drop off before you select the shipping. Here's a free shipping voucher for you. As compared to users who check out at the payment page, you might say, hey, you realize you are about to pay and you have not checked out. So in your email campaigns, you can actually add like frequently asked questions to show, the different payment modes you support and potential reasons why your payment fails. And I do understand in the Korean industry, sometimes it could be quite difficult for international customers to purchase on Korean website, coming from experience. So this helps you to understand why and where your customers are coming from to better engage your customers carefully. So with that, we can also drill down to further details. So for example, we can actually drill down to where and understand your customers are coming from. So let's say we can see that most of my users convert better from, let's say, organic and Facebook, and maybe not so much on, let's say, Google AdWords. So what does it mean to me as a marketer? So let's say this report shows me that most of my users convert better, let's say, with Facebook. This helps me to plan more budget for future campaigns, let's say on Facebook and Google, instead of, let's say, Twitter with a lower conversion. And that's how you are able to optimize your budget spend on social ads. Last but not least, one thing very interesting, which I touch on, is to first understand also if customers who are converting actually have payment success or fail. So with this kind of analysis and comparison, this tells you on why and how your customers may be dropping off for you to really better understand and engage them better. So funnels provide you a very good information to compare, understand key drop-off points. And last but not least, if we change this into the conversion time, we are also able to provide you a very good understanding on the distribution of users they convert different time spans. So for example, let's use an interval of 5 days. What we can see here is that majority of my users actually convert within 0 to 5 days. But what's very interesting, we also have a lot of users that take much longer to convert. So with that being said, back to the final steps, we can easily create the segments of users that drop off up to specific step for further analysis or sending over to Bigin for your engagement. With that, let's move on to Mixpanel Insights. Insights is a very good way where you can slice and dice reports to really better understand a lot of information about your users. So one of the very good examples, and let's start off very simple, you might want to understand what are my top products selling in my website. So all you need to do is to select the event, which is the item purchase, which contains the items being purchased, change this to a bar chart, and we can break down by the date. So we want to know which month sells better, followed by the item, let's say, name. So right here, we can see across different time spans, let me use 3 months, like January, December, November, we can easily understand what are the top products being sold within your platform. As you can see here, all it requires are different clicks away without the need of IT support. Now, let's move on to something much more complicated. And we might want to understand my user's lifetime value. And we do know that this is something every marketing team wants to look at. So to achieve this is extremely simple in Mixpanel. So all you need to do is head to this profile. And you can say, let's break down by my user's lifetime value. And what we can see here is, let me just do a bit of tweaking. We can set the interval. So we can say, let's understand the interval size of, let's say, 500 all the way to 10,000. So this gives me a very good idea on the distribution of my users' lifetime value. So for example, I can see that we have around this amount of customers that only spend like 2,000 to 2,500 Korean won with us. And we have maybe this amount of users that spend this amount of money with us in their lifetime. So this is a very good and easy way to understand customer lifetime value, to really form information, understand your users better. Last but not least, as marketing teams, we always send campaigns and we want to understand our revenue. How do we actually do that in Mixpanel? It's also very simple. So the same thing, revenue is defined by the purchase. And as you can see this drop down here, all you need to do is say, let's aggregate all the properties with the sum of the total price. With this, you are able to track your revenue over the different time span, and you can easily compare to different time periods, such as different quarter on quarter or on the previous month. And that's how easy you are able to keep track of your revenue without a single need to contact your IT. And all this information is derived in real time. So Insights is a very good way to allow you to slice and dice reports, such as understanding your top products being sold, what customers are searching for, and also understanding different revenue and your customer's lifetime value. And it's that simple. So moving on, one of the key things marketers look at is also my customers' retention. And I want to understand how my customers come back and purchase. So we do know that in e-commerce world, we always send customers a first-time voucher. And we are all, we know we always do that. So there are times where in the industry like this, we want to understand our customers' true loyalty. What does it mean? I might say, I want to find out how many of my users check out for the very first time and they actually use the voucher. And I want to find out how many customers come back and check out the second time without using the voucher. So I want to see how many customers are actually retained not because of the voucher. So with that, let's analyze this graph. So what you can see here, on average, we have 71% of my users, they came back within the first week to purchase the second time without the voucher. And we have 40% of my users, they came back from the second time and purchased without the voucher. So this really helps me to understand my users better and to understand if my users are people that are price sensitive, that requires vouchers to buy, or are they someone who do not? So with that being said, another way to look at this graph is to actually compare different user groups. So one example is like this. So we can select the checkout event. And what we can do is we can break down by user cohorts. So user cohorts is a way where you can easily create user segmentation. So I might say, find me all users that actually make a purchase, let's say at least 3 times in the last 30 days, and they actually use a voucher. So with that, I can always save it as a segment and use it in the comparison. So right here, I want to compare customers that use vouchers and customers that do not use vouchers and understand how 2 different groups are retained in my platform. So what we can see here is that customers who use vouchers are the yellow line and customers who don't use vouchers are in the blue line. So what is really interesting to tell me is that it seems that users tend to come back and repeat their purchase by a small margin when vouchers are given to them as compared to users who don't have vouchers. So by understanding how users retain, as mentioned earlier, it can help you better form and understand if vouchers plays an important role in your customer's purchase cycle. So now, the next thing we want to understand is how often my customers purchase. So that's how we are able to shift from a retention graph to a frequency graph. So why this is very useful? Depending on your e-commerce industry, and let's say you are doing groceries, or let's say selling like supplements for exercise, we do know that repeat purchases and replenishment is a very good way to engage your customers. But we need to understand is how long on average do my customers take before they make the second purchase? So with this, we want to understand for users who check out, when again did they came back to check out again? Do take note, this is dummy data, but how you are able to interpret the graph is like that. So from here, what we can see is that we have 44% of my users that actually make purchases 2 times in a week. We have 28% of my users that make 3 purchases in a week. So what this means for you, if let's say majority of our users, let's say make purchases twice in a week, whenever you want to create like a replenishment campaign to engage your users, what you can do is begin is that you can say when users make the first purchase, let's wait 3 days, engage them another time. Wait another 3 days to engage another time. So what we are trying to do is to engage customers at the right time based on their users' frequency. So all these are tips and tricks for growth hacks to really convert users at the best time possible before they move on to another competitor or before they actually churn. So this is what the frequency report does, and it helps you to understand how often your users purchase. Now, moving on, and this is where it gets really interesting. We do know that in the website, we always have these big banners on the top of the homepage that says 50% discounts or pay with Samsung Pay to get 10% off. But we do know that this can be very hard to measure when it comes to using marketing tools to measure the kind of impact. So this report really helps you to measure how banners or how certain new features are released on certain key KPIs. So for now, let's say you release a promotional banner on this day and the campaign name is, let's say, big discounts, just for example. All right? And you might want to see if this campaign actually on the banner on your website helps to drive more checkouts and more purchases by your customers. So, all right. So with that, all this calculation is done using machine learning and a mathematical calculation called causal impact and propensity modeling, which is a very good way to understand this kind of information. So despite all this complex stuff, we actually summarize this for you in the way that growth marketing teams can understand without technical knowledge. The first thing we tell you is, who are my customers that click on this banner? So we can see we have 32% of my users that click on, let's say, the promotional banner we have on the website. But what's very interesting is this. Having these promotional banners might not necessarily lead to more purchases or more checkouts. And that's where Mixpanel will tell you the impact of these banners on the key event, which is this checkout. So from here, what we can see is that this banner actually leads to a 26% increase on the number of total checkouts of your customers per day. So that's how, as the growth marketing team, we are able to measure how on-site banners have an impact on your checkouts and revenue. So now, let's say you want to take one step further. And because we do know that some of the banners actually is about discounts and it might reduce your profit margin. So sometimes what you might want to measure, instead of the total number of purchases, you want to see if this actually affects your overall revenue. And all you need to do is hit aggregate properties by the sum of the cart value. And immediately this changes from the total number of purchases into the overall number of checkout value, and you're able to derive information like this in Mixpanel extremely easily. So all you see, all it requires is just a couple of clicks away to derive all this information. All right, with that being said, there are times where we want to understand why and what causes my customers actually churn. And churn is a very important way to, win back customers. So Signal is one way we can do it. So Signal is something called a Co-Relational Report, and this helps you to identify why certain customers do this and why certain customers do that. So let's assume, you are like a business where you have a system that allows customers to request for product refund and return items. So let's say if you want to understand your churn customers, you can always say, tell me what is the correlation of my customers do they cause them to churn. So with this, you can run a co-relational analysis and Mixpanel at the end uses machine learning. Take note, this is dummy data, but let's assume we have something like product refund, and you might see like a strong correlation to this. So if let's say product refund shows a very strong line, like a green spot, you might see it, for example. What this tells me is that it seems that a lot of my customers actually churn because they keep returning items. So the next step as a growth marketer, right, is to analyze for customers who return items, what are the items they actually return? Are the reviews good and bad? Or is this actually a problem on the product that is causing the poor user experience? So this is one way we can analyze potential user churn. Apart from that, let's say imagine on the second use case, you have a huge spike in purchases. And let's say, on your website, you sell, let's say, Nike shoes, and there is a seasonal limited edition release. And you want to know what are the items your customers are purchasing that causing this huge spike. So let's say we have a customer group, and let's imagine the users are the one that purchase, in the last 7 days and have a huge purchase amount. You might want to see, show me what items my customers are purchasing, and let's break down by the different items. So once you run this correlational analysis, this is where you can reference to this line and understand what are the top items that is causing this spike in the sale, and why your customers are recently purchasing so much due to what items. So by understanding what are the key items that drive all these sudden purchases, what you can do is to potentially, build promotional banners or market these items through your email campaigns or Begin or the website to give customers awareness to let them know that you are actually selling these kind of products. So reports like this really help you to understand, what kind of relationship is causing certain, cause and effect. So this is what Signal Report does, and this will be a very good way to understand this kind of information. So now, moving on, I believe some of the growth marketing teams might do experiments. So this means it could be A/B testing in Begin, or or for example, it could be, certain web customers, go through a checkout page A, certain customers go through a checkout page B, where it's a bit more simple. You are able to use this something called using experiments. And that's how you're able to measure the lift, increase of your customer changes. So let's say, imagine you have a dashboard like this. It contains all the KPIs you want to track for the A/B testing. First thing you need to do is select the user group. So let's say you are sending the right events and information correctly. You can say users that go through the checkout page A compared to users that go through a checkout page B. So it can be a cohort, segment, or event. Once you select this, what you're able to do is understand how all this is affecting your key KPIs when you're measuring users who go through A and B experiments to understand if this is causing an uplift, decrease in terms of users conversion. So this is how we are able to really understand, experiment reports, do A/B testing, and measure certain product decisions to understand what could potentially cause customers to drop off. So let me give you one very good example. So recently I spoke to a client where they have a checkout journey that requires them to create an account before they actually key in the shipping details and make the payment page. And he told me that their abandoned cart rate is around 98%. So after much experimenting, I proposed to them that one way to reduce this is to change the checkout process by putting the creating account just right before the customers make the payment by using a checkbox. Because when they check out, they already have to give the details. So using a checkbox makes it even easier for customers to create an account without much hassle. So after doing these two changes, they did a test and used this report to compare the checkout flow to see if this new checkout flow really increases the conversion And in fact, this actually really helps the customer's experience, and this leads to a reduce in the pattern cut and increase in the conversion rates. So there's one way we can use experiments to really do a lot of A/B testing on your websites or on the app to understand your users better. All right, now the last thing I'd like to touch with is actually how are you able to create the user cohorts. And user segmentation, I believe, exists in Begin, and sometimes there are certain areas where you need to create segments in Mixpanel because of the different information we collect. Send it to Begin, do a combined segments to engage users better. So doing this in Mixpanel is also extremely simple. So all you need to do is create a cohort like this. And let's say you can say, I want to find all users that actually check out. Let's say, 3 times. And let's say you want to say, okay, maybe let's not use checkout. Let's say you view item. At least 3 times, and sometimes you want to say on different days, because a user can view many items on the same day. And you want to say, but they did not actually make any purchase within the last 30 days. And maybe at the same time, you want to do something that is a combined segment. You can say that I want to target users where lifetime value is, let's say, above or less than a certain amount. So let's say it's 400. So you can create complex segments like this with different clauses like and, or, then, exclusion, inclusion, and maybe let's say, for example, let's call this begin demo segment. So with this, once you create it, you're able to send it to Begin to actually engage your customer's user and much better. So all right, with that being said, this is what we have for Mixpanel, and hopefully this demonstration shows you how we are able to take action on insights through product analytics, much in-depth user analytics to better engage, convert, and personalize your messaging using a marketing platform like Begin. Thank you so much.